Hello, and welcome to Budget Commander. On this channel, we'll discuss Magic the Gathering topics with a focus on playing Commander on a budget. We'll cover things like deck building, top cards, deck techs, and more. Let's get started. Hello friends, today we have an Atla Palani Nest Tender deck tech for you. This is a budget deck tech, specifically 1DH, meaning all the cards in the deck are $1 or under, with the exception of the commander, who can be up to $5. Prices were checked as of the recording of this video using mtgstocks.com. Just note that prices can go up or down depending on when you're seeing this in relation to the recording. This is a populate deck, so the goal of the deck is to create token creatures and then make copies of those tokens. That's what the populate mechanic does. Our commander is a 4 to cast 2/3 that says pay 2 and tap her to create a 0/1 green egg creature token with Defender. These are just chump blockers, but it also reads, whenever an egg you control dies, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So hopefully this can help you cheat some extra creatures onto the battlefield, or can protect you from board wipes and things like that. As always, we're going to start out by talking about Accelerants. These are the cards that get us extra mana so that we can get into our game plan. Then we'll work on executing our game plan. What are cards that help us to do that? We'll also talk about cards that interfere with our opponent's game plan. And then the cards that give us consistency, so help us to smooth out our draws or give us additional draws. Lastly, we'll talk about the lands, the mana base that's going to help us to cast all the spells in our deck. So, for Accelerants, we have Talisman of Conviction, a 2 to cast artifact that taps for a colorless, or we can tap it for red-white. However, it's going to deal 1 damage to us if we do that. Talisman of Impulse is the same, except for we can have it deal 1 damage to us to give us red or green. Selesnya Locket costs 3 and taps for green-white. However, we can pay 4 in any combination of green and white, sacrifice the Locket to draw 2 cards. Next up, we have Rampant Growth, a 2 to cast sorcery that allows us to cheat an extra land onto the battlefield. Has to be a basic. Cultivate allows us to cheat 1 to the battlefield a turn early, and also helps us smooth out our land drops because we put 1 into our hand. Ranger's Path costs 4 and allows us to put 2 forests from our library onto the battlefield tapped. Excellent ramp. Lastly, we have Circuitous Route, a 4 to cast sorcery. Much better version of Ranger's Path because it allows us to get any basics we want, so we can get mountains or mountains or plains instead of just forests. But more importantly, we can get gate cards, and since those lands are entering the battlefield tapped anyway, I would recommend you do so. We are running all 3 of the possible gates in this deck, so Boros, Selesnya, and what's the other one? Gruul as a possibility. So you should be able to get 1 of these, if not 2. Depending on what point in the game you are. So, our game plan, we want to get Atla Palani out. She's 4 to cast, so that's nice. She's on the medium to lower end of casting costs. And then we want to create as many eggs as we can. We do that with a card like Instill Energy. So this is an aura we can put on Atla. Costs 1, it gives her haste, so we can use her that first turn to create an egg, assuming we have the mana. But we can also untap her once per turn, so essentially getting 2 eggs per 1 turn or cycle around the table. Birthing Boughs gives us 2/2 shapeshifters, or as long as Atla's out, we want them to be eggs, so we can attack with them, hoping to get more stuff off the top, or use them to just block. A great way to keep pumping out as many eggs as we can. Actual eggs, we're running Dragon Egg, Rock Egg, and Ruck Egg. The dragon, they're all defenders, 0/2 or 0/3. The dragon egg, when the egg dies, you get a 2/2 flying dragon with fire breathing, which means you can pay 1 to give that creature +1/+0 until end of turn. It does have to be a red source though. Rock egg, when it dies, gives you a 3/3 bird creature token. And then Ruck egg, when it dies, gives you a 4/4 red bird creature token. So it gives you some flyers, which is nice. If we're populating, that gives us good evasion that we can hopefully fly over our opponent's defenses. Additionally, we have a bunch of shapeshifters or changelings, so these all count as eggs as well. We have the Imposter of the Sixth Pride. For 2, you get a 3/1 egg. Woodland Changeling. For 2, you get a 2/2 egg. And then Irregular Cohort. For 4, you get a 2/2 egg. And when it enters, it creates you another 2/2 colorless shapeshifter or egg. So whenever those shapeshifters die, we get to make or find creatures off the top of our library, which is great. Felden of the Third Path is a great card that we can use on those shapeshifters if they're in our graveyard, because we get to create a token that's a copy of a creature in our graveyard. It comes in, turns into an artifact. Doesn't really matter for us. That creature does get haste, but we can sacrifice it at the beginning of our next end step. So whether it's one of those changelings or one of the actual eggs we saw earlier, we're going to be able to get creature tokens off of that and just keep pumping out more and more creatures. Soul Foundry is a 4-to-cast artifact, and when it enters, we can exile a creature from our hand, and then at any time we can pay X and tap the Foundry to create a copy of the exiled creature, where X is equal to the mana cost of the card that we chose to exile. Tooth and Claw gives us an excellent way to get rid of our eggs, or just utility if somebody's going to blow up some of our creatures. Targets 2 of them, or even just one of them. We could sacrifice that creature and an egg, and we get at least a 3/1 beast out of it. Also helps to accelerate us further into getting those creatures from our library. Hate Mirage just allows us to create tokens of our opponent's creatures. With all the populating we're doing, we might be able to create more and more copies of our opponent's creatures. Those creatures gain haste, and then we exile them at the beginning of the next end step. So either way, if you copy 2 big things and just swing at your opponents with them, hopefully you can get in some good damage, but even better yet, hopefully you can create copies of the copies. Second Harvest is a way that you could do that if you had at least 8 mana. It says for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. Wingmate Rock is a 5-to-cast flyer. It's got 3 power and 4 toughness, and as long as you attack with a creature, when you play this, so play it during your second main phase, you get to create a second 3/4 flying token bird. And then whenever Wingmate Rock attacks, you get to gain 1 life for each attacking creature. So gives you a little bit of life gain, which is nice. Flame Rush Rider is a 3/3 with dash, which means you can cast it at instant speed, but then it gets returned back to your hand. When it attacks, you get to create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature, and that token that you make is tapped and attacking as well. So great surprise trick you can pull and get an extra big attacker coming in on your opponent, force them into bad blocks hopefully. Rampaging Balos wouldn't be a bad card if you had 6 to cast, 6/6 with trample with landfall. Anytime you put a land out, you get a 4/4 beast. Armada Worm is a 6 to cast as well, but it's a 5/5 trampler, and when it enters, you get to create a 5/5 worm creature token with trample. Then we have the Giant Ataphage, a 7/7 with trample for 7, and whenever it deals damage, it gets to create a copy of itself. This card can get out of hand, so typically it gets dealt with right away, draws a lot of hate. But if you make it a full turn cycle around, or if you have haste in one of the many different ways we have in this deck, you might be able to get in first turn, which forces your opponents to need a board wipe. Vitu-Ghazi Guildmage is one of our populate cards. We can pay 4 to populate, which just means we create a token of a copy of a creature token we already control. If we have to, we can use it to make centaurs, but 6 mana for a 3/3 isn't really that great of a deal, so we're mostly using it to populate for bigger, better things. Wayfaring Temple is typically just it's got power and toughness equal to the number of creatures we control. We easily flood the board with all of our populate triggers. As long as we can deal damage with it, we get to create more creatures, because each time we deal damage to a player, combat damage with the Wayfaring Temple, we get to populate as well. Typically this guy just gets blocked night and day because he's too big. People can't manage to take that much damage. So it just is a big creature, but gives you some utility in that it populates if they don't block it. Tristani Selesnia's Voice is a 4 to cast 2/5 that says pay 3, 1 green and a white, tap it, to populate, and then whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we get to gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So if you're populating really big things, not only are you getting a big creature, you're also gaining a bunch of life off of that, which is great. Growing Ranks is an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, populate. So just try to make sure you always have something that you can populate each turn. Kind of sucks after a board wipe because you have to rebuild, and this doesn't get you going as quickly, but it can really turn you over the top otherwise. Gyred Conclave Exile is a 5 to cast 2/5. When it enters, we get a 4/4 Rhino, and then whenever he attacks, we get a populate, and that token that we populate is attacking as well. Zatalpa Primal Dawn is just in here because it's a big baddie. For 8, we get a 4/8 with flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and it's indestructible. So just a big creature. It's fun to throw those out on the table, and I like to have a good time. Ruined Stalactite and Amorphous Axe turn our non-egg creatures into eggs, which is nice. So we could even put this on Zatalpa or whatever our big other creatures are that we want. Pump it +1/+1 or +3/+0, and then when those creatures die, they get to act as eggs as well, which is nice. To pump all of our token creatures up, we have Intangible Virtue, which gives them all vigilance and +1/+1. Fires of Yavimaya give all of our creatures haste, and they kind of sit out on the table as this deterrent for players because they know at any time you could sacrifice it to give a creature +2/+2. Samut, Tyrant Smasher is a 4 to cast Planeswalker, which we don't have a whole lot of in our format, but it comes in with 5 loyalty counters. It gives all of our creatures haste, and we can have target creature get +2/+0 and haste until end of turn. Not sure why. We already have haste, so I'm not sure why that's on there. But we get a Scry 1, which helps us smooth out our draws as well. Johnny the Great-Hearted gives all of our creatures vigilance. We mostly want to use that -2, which puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control. It does give a loyalty counter to each of our other planeswalkers, but that's not really the point of them. We just like to pump all our creatures up, so we consider him a pump card. We also get to sit there and gain life if our opponents can't come at us. Goring Ceratops gives all of our creatures double strike when it attacks. Amara Tandris prevents all damage that would be dealt to our creature tokens. It's also a big body, so it can attack and block its own. Hellkite Charger is a 6 to cast 5/5 with flying and haste, and helps us to get extra combat steps to help us close out the game more quickly. We also have some cards that help protect us with Mending Touch that can generate one of our creatures. Rootborn Defenses, which gives all of our creatures indestructible and we can populate after. And then we have Druids Deliverance, which is a 2 to cast fog effect. It says prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you, and then we get to populate. As far as interfering with our opponents, we have a few cards here that do something bad for our opponent and then hopefully populate for us. Sundering Growth costs 2 and we get to destroy an artifact or enchantment, then populate. Tristani's Judgment says we get to exile a creature and then populate. And then Gyred's Belligerence, we pay X and red. We get to deal X damage divided as we choose among any number of target creatures. And then whenever a creature dealt damage this way dies, we get to populate. So if you ping off a bunch of little things, you get to populate a whole bunch of times, or if you just kill one big thing, you get to populate once. You get to choose how you use it, a lot of utility in that card. Same thing goes for Naya Charm, a lot of utility here. We can choose one of 3 modes, deal 3 damage to target creature, return a card from a graveyard to its owner's hand, or tap all creatures target players controls. I want to note that second one, return target card from a graveyard to its owner's hand. So if you need to, you can actually help your opponent to get a card that will deal with a second player that you both are having trouble with. Angel of Sanctions is great because it reads, when Angel of Sanction enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Angel of Sanctions leaves the battlefield. Oblivion Ring does the same thing, but it's on an enchantment. The benefit of the Angel of Sanctions is that it has Embalm, which means if it's in your graveyard, you can pay 6, bring it back as a token copy of itself, which you can then populate over and over again, causing a lot of problems for your opponents. Lastly, we have Phyrexian Rebirth with which wipes the board of all creatures and gives you a giant horror artifact creature token, and then Hour of Reckoning, which destroys all non-token creatures. Not many opponents are going to be running token decks, so a lot of times this is a one-sided board wipe in your favor. Cards that provide consistency. We have Acrobatic Maneuver, which is going to draw us a card and allow us to blink, protect one of our creatures. Harmonize, which just draws us 3 cards. Shamanic Revelation, which costs 5, and we get to draw a card for each creature we control. We also gain 4 life for each creature we control with power 4 or greater. And then there's Elemental Bond and Garruk's Pack Leader, which read the same, except one's on an enchantment, one's on a creature. They both say, whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Colossal Majesty is another enchantment that's going to draw us cards that costs 3, and it says if at the beginning of our upkeep we control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Fecundity is a 3 to cast enchantment that says whenever a creature dies, that creature's controller may draw a card. Do notice that this is a universal card, so whenever creatures our opponents died, they also get to draw cards, but since we're populating and creating so many creatures, we're hopefully going to be getting the most benefit out of this card. As far as lands, we have Boros Guildgate, Boros Garrison, and Stone Quarry, which give us red-white. We have Windscarred Crag, which also gives us red-white. Gruul Guildgate, Gruul Turf give us green-red. Kazandu Refuge, Rugged Highlands, Shivan Oasis give us red-green. Timbergorge gives us red-green. Selesnya Guildgate, Blossoming Sands give us green-white. Elfham Palace, Greypelt Refuge, Selesnya Sanctuary give us green-white. Tranquil Expanse gives us green-white. We have Exotic Orchard, which can tap for all of our colors or colorless depending on what our opponents are playing. Drungleshine gives us all of our colors. Vivid Grove, Vivid Meadow, which can give us all of our colors. They each come in with 2 charge counters, and we can tap them for green or white respectively, but we can also remove those charge counters to add a different color that we need. Croson Verge enters the battlefield tapped and taps for a colorless, but we can also pay 2 and sacrifice the Verge to put a forest and a plains from our library onto the battlefield. Ash Baron is a land that comes in and can tap for a colorless, or we can pay 1 to basic land cycle it. Myriad Landscape enters the battlefield tapped, and we can tap it for colorless, or we can pay 2 and tap it to sacrifice Myriad Landscape to search our library for 2 basic land cards that share a land type and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Naya Panorama enters, taps for a colorless, and at any point we can pay 1 and sacrifice the Panorama to get a forest, mountain, or plains onto the battlefield tapped. Then we have Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, which allow us to fetch any land we need out of our library and put it on the battlefield tapped. Temple of the False God taps for 2 as long as we have 5 or more lands. And then we have a couple utility lands. Gargoyle Castle we can turn into a 3/4 flying artifact creature token. So this is something if we don't have anything to populate, we can make this, and then we have populate targets. Same with Grove of the Guardian. We can pay 5, tap 2 untapped creatures, sacrifice the Grove of the Guardian, and we get an 8/8 with Vigilance. So great populate target there. Skarg the Rage Pits allows us to pump our creature +1/+1, but also give it trample until end of turn, which is important evasion. Mosswort Bridge has Hideaway, which says when it enters the battlefield, we get to look at the top 4 cards of our library, put one of them face down into exile, and then once we have 10 or more power on the battlefield, we can tap the Mosswort Bridge and a green to play the exiled card. So great card advantage there. Forgotten Cave and Tranquil Thicket both have cycling. They give us colors we need if we need to play a land, but if we have too much land, we can just pay that 1 and draw a new card. For basics, we're running 3 plains, 3 forests, and a mountain. And then that's it for the deck. As far as the CMC, that's what the mana curve looks like there. Our average CMC was 3.84, a little bit towards the higher end, quite a few 7 drops. So just keep that in mind as you're playing it. Make sure you have a really good starting hand before you get into a game. If you like token decks, if you like to populate, if you like eggs, then this might be the deck for you. Give it a go. Let me know how you enjoyed it or what changes you might have made. Otherwise, let me know which commander you'd like to see next. Hope Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace. Thanks for watching. You can help support this channel by hitting that subscribe button. This will help keep you up to date on content from Budget Commander. If you liked the video, make sure you like the video. Leave me a comment with your thoughts on this topic. And if you think someone else could benefit from this video, feel free to share. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk with you next time.